everyone. Thank you for tuning in for yet another session of our Masters of Conversion series, where masterminds of winning website experience share the trade tips and stories. I am Shanaz, Marketing Manager at VWO, a full funnel experience optimization platform. Today we have with us Shannon Kelly, UX designer at OverDrive, a digital distributor of ebooks, audiobooks, magazines, and more. Shannon is a member of the UXPA Cleveland board and has years of experience delivering stellar user experiences that convert. If you could please turn on your camera, Shannon, so that the audience can see you. Yes, we can see you. It's great to have you here, Shannon, and I'm really excited for this session. I'm sure so is our audience. Before we start the webinar, I'd like to thank the audience for joining Shannon and I from all across the world, and also inform you that we will be taking up questions at the end of the webinar. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat box at any point during the session. With that, Shannon, the stage is all yours.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to be with us, and thank you, VWO, for hosting me. I'm going to apologize now. I talk really fast, and sometimes I fly through presentations, so I'm just known to do that, so I apologize ahead of time. But we'll have plenty of time to talk at the end and answer any questions you have. Today, my talk is how to use UX research to enhance your conversion strategy. I just want to share maybe some meaningful ideas with you on how I've applied qualitative research to my CRO strategy, and hopefully you can get some ideas on how you can do that too. And just a quick heads up, what will be covered today is a high-level oversight of qualitative data and why I feel quantitative data isn't enough. I want to share with you my personal experiences and how I've utilized qualitative data paired with my quantitative data to help drive strategies at OverDrive and ultimately increase conversion rates. But first, a little bit about me, and just talk about my journey into CRO and UX. My name is Shannon Kelly, and I'm currently a UI designer too at OverDrive. I have a bachelor's degree in science in web design, which is funny because back then I don't remember building anything based on any science. It was just design trends and whatever the client wanted at the time. Looking back at my schooling in the early 2000s, they didn't preach user research, at least not like how it's covered these days. Over the last 16 years of my career, I've worked in multiple industries in internal marketing departments and marketing agencies where I really learned the ins and outs of digital marketing, analytics, and eventually fell in love with conversion rate optimization. I am a self-confessed data nerd. And as far as where I work now, what I do, I work at OverDrive, one of the largest distributors of ebooks and audiobooks for public libraries, schools, and businesses to share digital content with their patrons, students, and employees. We are B2B as we serve library and school markets, but we're also B2C because we make the apps people use to access free ebooks and other content. You may know us from our original app, OverDrive, or you may be familiar with our newer, improved reading app, Libby. We also have a school app named Sora. As I mentioned, my current title at OverDrive is a UI designer too. From the sounds of it, you're probably thinking UI isn't UX, and you're correct, it isn't. But I was hired for my background in design and CRO, so trust me when I say I'm not just a designer, I'm actually consider myself a UX strategist. Contrary to what you may think, I do not work and support our reading apps. Rather, I work closely with our marketing department to improve user experience and optimize marketing sites and landing pages. You'll see some of those pages later on in my presentation. So, why is quantitative data not enough? And how is qualitative research useful? If you're doing CRO, all this probably sounds very familiar. Quantitative data is defined as forms of counts and numbers where each data set is unique numerical value associated with it. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, an example is being able to click or track how your clicks are performing, how you're downloading something, buying something, seeing other traffic data, how many people are coming to your site, how many people are leaving your site at a certain time. These are all metrics that you use in quantitative research. And things like polls and surveys and questionnaires are also considered those quantitative methods. So when I was a CRO specialist at the digital agency I used to work at, I researched and strategized design based on numerical data. I used heat mapping and to figure out like the popular areas of the page, what was being clicked, and how users were interacting with it. I dug into website analytics and determined my traffic sources, the amount of traffic, how high bounce rates were, and whether or not the page goals were being met. I did A/B testing platforms, and I was able to test and iterate and increase conversion rates based on little design tweaks. With this kind of data, I was able to support my decisions and push back on clients and stakeholders by showing them the hard numerical proof. At this point, I was like, this is all I need. This is all I was taught, and this is all I knew. So what am I missing? What was I missing at that point? I had no idea. I was able to make decisions based on the data that I had, but I really didn't have a full picture, only utilizing that quantitative data. A lot of what I knew were assumptions. I knew what people were clicking on and what they were searching and how they got through the funnel, but I didn't know how users felt, and I didn't know what users were thinking. Things like, what did they come to this page looking for? Does this content make sense to them? Did the page answer their questions? Did they find the form easy to fill out? Were they frustrated or annoyed, and where? And did they find and get what they were looking for? These were all things that I really didn't have answers to. Were these people satisfied in the end? So I just want to quickly jump into a high-level overview of qualitative research. And qualitative data is defined as data that is characterized. It can be observed and recorded and is generally non-numerical, unless you're saying something like 3 out of 5 users failed to complete this task. This type of data is collected from people who are either our current or similar to our types of users through the methods of moderated and unmoderated observations, one-on-one interviews, focus groups, and other similar methods. Unlike quantitative data, where you sit and wait and collect thousands of heat maps and traffic insights, and you only need to actually test a limited amount of people with qualitative research. According to the Nielsen-Norman group, 5 users is enough to test with. If 5 people who fit your target audience don't get it, it's likely the rest of your audience isn't getting it. And depending on your testing method, you can find out rather quickly where your problem areas are and ask certain people pretty quickly. You can get certain answers depending on which method you choose. There's no more assumptions or guessing. It's just raw data with qualitative research. You're literally listening to the voice of the user. With quantitative data, it's the what, where, when, how the puzzle. But with qualitative data is that missing piece of the puzzle, the why. You're literally finding out why people are there, why they want something, what are they doing from that aspect. And usually you don't get that with any kind of heat maps or looking just at numbers. There's no human factor in that. And with qualitative research, you're really hitting on the human factor of research. A phrase that's used among the UX community is, often what users say and what users do are 2 different things. You're only getting half of the story by looking exclusively at quantitative data. You need to find a sweet spot in your research methods so you can confidently say, I know because the data shows it, but also we listened to users. All right, so enough's enough. Let's talk real world experiences. Conversions for me are probably going to look completely different than your type of conversions. Most of the time it deals with people downloading things for me or people borrowing a book. Those are generally a lot of the goals and the factors that I work around in my job. And I'm going to talk through these examples like a case study because I think it's important to explain the process and procedures taken to find the solutions and drive conversions. I just don't want to like show you something and say, oh, this worked and this increased, you know, whatever. I want to give you the story behind what the page is about and how we got to a solution and eventually increase conversions. So I'm going to start with the first example is our OverDrive.com title details page. It's basically a page that features a book and gives you the description, kind of like anything that you would see on Amazon or any of those type of book websites. It gives you a description of the book and high-level overview of everything that you need to know, the category of the book, related books, things like that. So our overdrive.com website is basically a book search engine meant to kind of be a catalog of sorts of ebooks and audiobooks available from our collection. New users generally find our sites through search engines while looking for phrases like free ebooks online. The overdrive.com website can help users find books, connect them to a local library that has that book, so they can then borrow it and read them for free through the library's website or one of our apps. So this is what it used to look like. This is the before, and other than our website not being touched for years from a UI standpoint, the team and I quickly found some problems that users were running into. There were 3 to 4 call to actions above the fold. I think that's too much for one person to deal with. Of those call to actions, they were vague and unclear. Based on some surveys we ran, we found that users didn't actually know how to get this book. And if you were looking at this, you would probably think, I don't know how to get a book either. The Find Your Library and the redundant in libraries nearby sounded like you had to physically go to the library to get an ebook, which is not the case. There was also a sign in and sign up button, and that really didn't take you any further into the actual book borrowing process. So what a user is supposed to do is find a book on our site and be directed to their library's website, where they can then borrow the digital version for free. The Find Your Library button would take you to a list of libraries based on your geolocation, if your permissions were enabled, or you could put in your postal code and it would spit out results for libraries nearby you. The CTA on the library page wasn't clear either. It just said view. So book checkouts were our conversion metric for this. We wanted to see how many people were coming to overdrive.com, getting to their library site and checking out a book, borrowing out a book, basically. And that was the conversion path. And we wanted to use that metric as our unit of measurement here. We knew from our qualitative data that conversions were low and too low for the amount of traffic that we have coming to the overdrive.com website. At the time, our conversion rates were between 0.02% and 0.05%. We had a mess on our hands. So without asking or testing anyone at first, we formulated a hypothesis and plan to fix and reduce the call to actions. We thought that was the best thing to do, is let's just get rid of all these unnecessary call to actions and let's just give the user one thing to do and get them to convert. We also kind of felt like we needed to clarify the system, because if you weren't familiar with OverDrive, like you came here from a search engine and you just happened to land on our landing page, you might not understand how the process works. And so we kind of felt like, well, maybe we should have some kind of like, oh, how does this work button or something like that to explain the process. So people were like, well, is this free? Do I have to pay for it? I don't know. We played around with many CTA ideas and felt like anything that we were producing or coming up with as far as ideas for different call to actions, just it wasn't clear enough. And we ended up using with this version I'm showing on the screen here, which is lengthy to say and not clear and not very easy to read, really. Because we weren't confident with choosing any of our call to actions, we didn't want to test it for the massive amount of traffic that we had. We didn't want to screw it up with the massive amount of people that were landing on our site. So we decided to take a step back, and we decided both our original 4 CTA version with our new 1 CTA version in front of a limited amount of users using unmoderated testing on mobile and desktop. We quickly sampled library patrons and non-library patrons to see if they could actually find a Harry Potter book from their local library's digital collection and borrow it. We had testers speak aloud, tell us their thoughts as they walk through the process, answer our questions, and then they were allowed to give us feedback at the end as well. Other than enhancing the variant version of this page with more book details and features, our theory was that one call to action button would outconvert 4 call to action buttons. And although we could easily split test these designs against one another in a quantitative testing platform, we didn't expect the overwhelming feedback that we got from multiple test subjects. The testers said, instead of having a button that takes you to another page with a list of libraries, why not just list the libraries on the book detail page? You don't know how much my mind was blown when I heard this. Not only because multiple people had suggested it, because it seemed like it was such an easy solution for something that we were just making overly complex. We just needed some user feedback. So, of the visitors to overdrive.com to their library sites, there was nearly a 28% increase overall in conversion rates. And that's just overall conversion rates. The focus of our metric of borrowing books increased by 18%. And so we're still trying to continue to update our site's UI, improve it, improve the process of getting people into the library sites, into our apps, and getting a book. We're still continuing to user test, and we're also continuing to A/B test now and in the future. Okay, so for my second case study, I'll walk you through a B2B example. OverDrive's Resource Center is for our partners in the public library, K-12, corporate, and academic spaces. Partners come to our Resource Center to learn more about our apps, download marketing materials to promote their digital libraries, and then get training. And there's also an area for them to get book recommendations for them to purchase for their patrons or their students in this case, since we're going to be focused on the K-12 section of the site. 2 major conversion goals of a focus on the site were tracking downloads of marketing materials and getting users to watch training videos. So, as you can see from these wonderful screenshots, our K-12 landing page was pretty boring. It's not unique, and it had duplicate content. In fact, it looks exactly like the library version listed below. Excuse me. Just looking at this visually, we knew we needed to do something to make updates to it. The public library partner section is one of the most popular areas of our site, but our K-12 business unit wasn't so popular. So we know we needed to drive more new and returning traffic back to the K-12 section, because we really needed to get our newer partners in the K-12 space in front of this material so they can share it and they can learn and they can help kids read in schools. So for context, the goal of this landing page was just to literally redirect people to other areas of the site. We wanted to get you into the marketing and outreach section, and that's where they would download PDFs, social graphics, and promote reading to students. Staff training was training videos and webinars. Collection development is an area to get book recommendations to purchase. And then the app section was about our Sora app and its features. So because this was the K-12 page that we were focused on, and we really wanted to ramp up traffic and engagement and increase our conversion rates to downloads and video watches, we really wanted to focus on the people who would be using the site. So we sampled teachers, but because of COVID and because it was in 2020, in-person testing was off limits. So we had to result back to our unmoderated user testing for this redesign project. From the teachers we sampled, they didn't understand what the Resource Center was and how it was organized. They got confused, and then some of them even got lost by going into the public library section because everything kind of looked the same. They didn't know where to go to find out more information about the app, or where the marketing materials were to promote SOAR to the students. They even glossed over headlines that didn't seem to appeal to them, like marketing and outreach. One of the test subjects even said, marketing and outreach, that's not my job. Some positive things that came out of the test, though, were we were able to see what kinds of material on the Resource Center they were drawn to and what they wanted to download. Some additional feedback suggested we organize the content by grade levels because our audience were teachers, obviously. So maybe we should have the content organized a little bit to cater to certain age groups. And almost all the teachers said that they found the classroom activities and games really appealing, but they were kind of hard to find. Using all our quantitative metrics that we already had, like clicks, downloads, popular pages, site searches, paired with our newly found qualitative research, I was able to lay out a wireframe with a strong content hierarchy in place. I highlighted and featured different sections of the K-12 business unit and called things out by naming them in ways teachers could recognize and relate to. I also reworked the navigation to reduce confusion. Some of the language we modified for the K-12 teachers included changing things like marketing and outreach, which is a familiar term among librarians, to increase student reading and engagement. We changed staff training to educator training, learn all there is to know about Sora, and collection development to book recommendation list. Another designer on our team was able to easily rework my wireframe into a beautiful new style, and we're currently using this style and adopting it across the rest of the site, one page at a time. So what are the results? Our unique events like downloads and video watches within the K-12 section of the site went up 56%. And we were able to funnel more people further into the K-12 section of the site with less traffic. At that time, traffic started to dip here and there, but we were still able to increase people's engagement and get them further into the site and get them to the sections that they wanted to get to too. And then our bounce rates and exit rates also improved. So what did we learn from both of these case studies? Sometimes users have great ideas that can convert. Not all ideas are going to be like great, but in some instances, they can be really magical. Listening to user struggles can inspire changes you didn't think were problems. Simple wording adjustments. If people are confused by the copy that you have, you don't know until you actually ask them. Just because metrics say something is clicked on a lot doesn't mean it's what users want. Find out what they want and don't bury it. And lastly, improving the user experience can increase conversions, and you can be more confident in your CRO strategy when you take the time to sample your users' feedback first. You don't know what you don't know. And the same goes for not testing and not asking users. Not everyone is knowledgeable on gathering qualitative data. And honestly, you shouldn't be running these tests if you don't know what you're doing. I recommend hiring a UX expert, mentors, or consultants to help you facilitate tests and techniques, especially if you don't have anyone on staff. I personally rely on my team's awesome UX analyst to plan and facilitate these tests. Hi, Stacy. Together, we were able to fill in the missing pieces, build strategies, and redesign pages that have proven to convert. I only wish that I was exposed to qualitative data sooner in my career. I just know that I could have made some astronomical changes to some pages. I encourage you to research qualitative methods at your company and pair the data with your quantitative metrics to drive your conversion strategies. Thank you for your time and for letting me share my experiences. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'll do my best to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Shannon. That was a very, very insightful presentation with a lot of case studies. So I have a lot of questions actually, but I've picked up some that I think can answer a lot of people's questions.
Sure.
So first off, I'll start off with a compliment. So Bhavna Neil says that you're a fantastic speaker, and I agree.
Oh, thank you.
You're so animated, it's just impossible to sort of lose interest. So yeah, I agree with you, Bhavna. And yes, Shannon, you're a fantastic speaker. So
Thank
yeah,
you. I'll chalk that up to my 4 years of doing speech and debate in high school. So
I'm sure that helped. Okay, moving on to another question. So we have one question. What kind of tools do you suggest using to get the most insightful user behavior insights? And then how do you implement those insights into your designs?
so we're kind of limited right now as far as the tools that we can for qualitative research. We're currently using usertesting.com, which is pretty well known. A lot of people use it. We're looking at a few other different types of testing platforms too. So I would say if you're really geared towards using the qualitative data, do your research, find out what's going to be, good for your company budget wise and whatnot. As far as utilizing that stuff in design, I think it's just literally, using the information that they give you and just really interpreting it in a way that is, you're to let the user know that you're listening to them. I think, it's hard sometimes to kind of guess on, the quantitative things. Like we can see where people are clicking and we see things are kind of working good and whatnot. But as far as design, it's for me, anyways, I think I'm more focused on strategy. So it's like laying the page out, the content hierarchy, the information architecture, really just organizing things in a way so that the user journey or your marketing funnel is very clear and concise on what the next step is, or where people are going. I just like to say that, like, listening to people, it's really changed the way I've approached design. Like I said, sometimes you're just guessing when you're looking at some quantitative things and you're saying, oh, well, this is working good, let's not change this. But then you kind of find out once you start interviewing people, it's like, oh, maybe this isn't as good as we thought. Like people are not so happy with this or whatever. So I think it's you still got to have some intuition when it comes to design. And I would recommend, don't ever stop testing regardless. Don't say, oh, we nailed this design, we've got it done and covered. I think there's always room for A/B testing, especially if you kind of know now after listening to users, what they like, what they want to see, or what they're more familiar with. There's design is so complex. So I just say always continue to test regardless, whether it's like VWO, using a testing platform that you're testing back and forth with, testing different versions with. I think it's always good. But if you feel like some of your stuff isn't hitting the mark at all, try to incorporate some of that qualitative research and use that data to make your strategies and your designs, come to life.
I agree, Shannon. I think testing everything is extremely important. I mean, you can never be too sure about it. You might be very confident about an idea that yes, this is going to work, and it might turn out to be a complete disaster for your conversion metrics, and
Yeah.
you don't want to take that risk.
Yeah, and like I said, like in the presentation, if you can qualitative test with people and a smaller sample, you can kind of see where you might be hitting some marks or you might be failing. So then when you actually go back into your A/B testing or your split testing, like you may come up with better ideas to compare one another. So but with A/B testing, you're usually putting that in front of much higher quantity of people. And so I think it's almost better to be able to go back to your bosses and say, all right, we know from the qualitative stuff that people aren't feeling this design. So we're going to go ahead and modify this based on what they said. And then we're going to pair this with a new test, because it's better to get it wrong with a small sample than it is to get it wrong with a very large sample.
Yeah, I agree. I hope that answered your question. So we have a lot of questions. Another
Okay, good.
compliment,
I can talk
Andre.
forever. So.
Andre says it was fantastic. Thanks. I'm glad, Andre, you liked the webinar. Shannon did actually do a very, very good job in giving us
Thank
all the
you.
case studies and actionables to take back and implement. Um, so Belson J has asked, how many CTAs can you use in an entire page?
I don't think there's a solid answer for that, but I would not recommend doing a ton. I would say figure out what your page goals are. Find out what obviously you have a marketing strategy around a page, a landing page, for example. If you add too many call to actions to a page, you're just going to confuse the user. And obviously user experience is all about clarifying the process, simplifying the process. And if the user experience is easy, then your conversion rates should be much better. You don't want to overload people. It's called cognitive load. You don't want to overwhelm them. And there's also a book called Don't Make Me Think out there that basically tells you, just keep it simple. It comes down to that basic principle. Keep it simple. Whatever your goal is. I say a lot of people think that you have to put so many different CTAs on a page, and honestly, if your goal is to get them from point A to point B, then just give them the point B CTA. You know what I mean? Like don't muddy it up more than you have to. And if you have to have like multiple versions of like some kind of funnel or something, some kind of let's say lead gen type of format, a lot of times you'll see like, fill out this form and we'll send you a PDF, white paper type of thing. But then it could also be paired with, hey, do you have questions? Like a little, like a little pop-up bubble or whatever like that in the bottom, like a sticky that says, hey, you have questions, you can join a demo or talk to a representative or something like that. I mean, generally those are okay, as long as one's not taken away from the other, I guess. But I would limit your CTAs. I mean, focus on the goal of the page, what you're trying to accomplish, and make that your call to action.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the goal of the page that should determine what CTA you have and where you have it and how many of them you have it. You can't just put like 10 CTA. Somewhere the user's gonna click and somewhere we're gonna get a lead.
Right. And I mean, if you have a call to action above the fold with some content for context, and say that you do see that people are scrolling further down on the page to get more information, there's no shame in repeating that same call to action down lower in the page. I just don't think you should have like, do this, or hey, go here, or you can contact us here. And like, don't overwhelm people. Just get them from point A to point B.
You actually answered 3 questions here in one question.
Okay, good.
So Avin Deory is asking, for a small startup, what should be the process of a UX research? I think what Avin is asking are what steps should be followed, to set up a UX research process and then scale it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So still not a very big expert in actually facilitating the qualitative research side of things, as I do focus most on strategy. But I will say that as a startup, you can definitely, there's some great books out there as far as facilitating user research. I would look into those first and foremost. There's a lot of knowledgeable people on YouTube. I won't name drop here for the sake, but if somebody wants to get in contact with me, I can direct you to people that can help you facilitate these things or learn how to facilitate these things. Some things that people don't think about is like, well, how do I get sample groups? How do I find like users in this space? And if you don't have like the money to invest in a platform like usertesting.com, there are ways that you can reach out to people. I mean, there's first and foremost, it's not the best practice by all means, but you can always test with your friends and family at the very least. And usually you don't have to pay them some kind of incentive to give your feedback, but that's at the very, very minimal if you don't have any type of testing type of capability right now. You can reach out on social media, and I've even, granted, I don't know how much you want to do this, but like websites like Craigslist and stuff like that, where you can facilitate certain types of people, like, hey, like kind of like like an ad in a newspaper. Hey, are you this, this, and this? Like, contact us. We want to talk to you, type of thing. Usually, if you're talking with people, users, people that are kind of like your target audience, though, there's going to be some kind of incentive they're going to want to compensate their time. So just think about that. And it doesn't have to be a big amount of pay or anything like that. Sometimes it's gift cards to Starbucks or Amazon or something like that, and you can determine what your budget is for that. But you are taking people's time to answer questions and go through a process or whatever it is, or if you have a physical product, you're testing the physical product. If it's a tech type of company and you have a website or an app, people are going to be walking through it. You're going to ask questions that are not leading, but you're taking up their time to be there, or at least in the sense of maybe this day and age, you're probably doing it through a virtual platform like a Zoom or GoToMeeting. You have to facilitate these things over the web. Regardless, it's good to incentivize people. So just think about that. Yeah, and I can, like I said, I can connect you with people who can help you, can give you, consultation on what to do and how to reach out to people too. Just follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me on LinkedIn, and I can message you the right people.
All right. I hope that answered your question, Avin. In fact, in one of our previous Masters of Conversion session, we've had an expert recommend using family as a group to test your products for someone who's building from home or a really early age startup. Because I think the suggestion was actually that it'll be family who will give you the most brutal opinion, right? The
Yeah,
most honest opinion. They don't have anything to win or lose in that. So
yeah,
yeah, I think that suggestion echoed in your suggestion as well. So
yeah.
I think everybody should try that.
Yeah.
if,
Well,
if
and it's
you're
even
running
one of those things too, like obviously family members aren't going to be in your target audience who your product or service is marketed to. That being said, maybe grandma's not technologically savvy, but you need somebody to walk through your process of how to sign up for something. So give your phone to grandma and see how easy it is for somebody who's not technologically capable of really, you know, maybe always on the computer or something like that. Not that grandmas aren't. I'm not saying that, because there's a lot of savvy older people out there. But I'm just saying, like, if you know somebody who's maybe not as technologically capable of getting online and searching the web or whatever it is, test with them, see what they think of it. If they're like, oh, what is this? How do I do this? And kind of like get their sense and their feedback from it, because if they can't walk through a process, then certainly that your customers might not be able to do that either. So
Yeah. Okay. So another question is from Maria Sanz. If users propose solutions during the research, how much attention should you pay to their solutions, to their wishes?
yeah, I say if it's like a wish list type of item, like say they are a user, or you're getting feedback via your customer support people, I would say, how many times are you hearing that type of feedback, with that wish list type of thing, like, hey, I would like this feature. If you're hearing that often, or you have a platform where people can upvote these features and things like that, like, by all means, like, that's a good time to like prioritize those things. Like I said, sometimes like I said in the presentation, sometimes people suggest things, and you shouldn't listen. You should listen to what they feel or what they're missing and all that stuff. But sometimes the ideas can be really out there, like, oh, you should do this, and it's like, like, we're not going to listen to that part of it. So you take it with a grain of salt sometimes. I think it's obviously you're going to have to take all this data that you've gathered from your multiple test subjects, and you're going to take that to a stakeholder or somebody in charge and say, this is what collectively these people said. I think it's more about the collective feeling than it is more about the individual response. Like if somebody's like, well, I'm not going to use your app until you get this feature. Well, you might be the only one that wants this feature. So let's get a consensus and hear what other people have to say.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree to that. I think uh, it's the ability to sort of differentiate between real issues and loud issues. Like some
Yep.
issues can be really loud, like, but they might not be real issues. So yeah,
Yep. I
thank
think.
you for that.
Yep.
Now I think moving on to the second last question. One advice that you'd give to your fellow UX designers and CRO practitioners.
One advice: always be testing. Always be testing. I mean, I think listen to your users and just always be testing. Like I just, just I can't harp that enough. I mean, there's nothing should be driving your products or your services like your users. And to all the practitioners out there that are doing UX design and research and strategy and CRO, I think we're in a good bucket. I'll say that. I think there is a need for our types of skill sets, and yeah, I think that just keep chucking along. As frustrating as it can be sometimes, just keep chucking along because we're all here and we're all in it together. So.
Always be testing should be like the golden word that everybody should just
Yeah,
plaster all over
always.
their.
I don't care what your methods are. If it's the qualitative testing, if it's the quantitative testing, like it all meshes together. I think it's all just one great big. We should just all be one big happy family and combine the data and do great things.
Yeah. So, Shannon, we have a lot of questions about the books you're reading, your recommendations. So, I'll just categorize them into various fields. So, uh, we have questions about you, about the current books that you're reading, both personal and professional.
Personal and
Maybe
professional.
a
Yeah.
couple.
Okay. I actually just got, for personal reading, because obviously broke nerds, I work for OverDrive. So I got Midnight Sun, which is the version of the Twilight books, but written from Edward's perspective. So that's my personal reading. That's on my pile list of things to do. And then I'm bouncing back and forth for professional wise. I'm bouncing back and forth between Delta CX by Debbie Levitt and Make Your Customers Dance by Mark Majors. Those two you can find on Amazon for sure. I'm not sure if they're in our catalog or not, but yeah, those are a couple professional and personal books I'm reading.
Okay. All right. I'm actually interested in the first one.
Oh.
So, another is, do you have a favorite blog, website, resource to stay up to date on CRO?
CRO, not CRO. I've been hanging out on Debbie Levitt's YouTube channel for UX and CX talks. You can find me there, always chatting every Tuesday at least at noon-ish, lunchtime-ish here in United States Eastern time. So, but yeah, she's got a great podcast and Ask Me Anything sessions that she does Tuesdays. That's pretty much where I hang out. I think that's where I get the most of my inspiration and a lot of my knowledge.
All right, Shannon. So on to the last question. This is the last.
Okay.
I've been saying last question since the past four questions.
Hey, I can hang out for as long as you need me.
All right. So for the last question, for those who are starting in the UX world, do you have any certifications or courses you recommend taking to learn all about the UX topics?
um, I mean, I don't have any like ones that I've gone through per se, as far as like I highly recommend. The Nielsen Norman group has got its own thing, its own courses and stuff like that. It's quite expensive. If you work for a corporation and they're willing to invest in UX, by all means, see if they'll pay for it. It is like a small, otherwise you're going to need a small loan to, to go through that course. But I think there's, like I said, there's some good resources out there. First off, you can connect with people on LinkedIn. Find people who are willing to be mentors too, especially if you're just starting out. I think there's people out there that pay, like you have to do paid mentorships, and then there's people out there that are doing free mentorships. So, they're just there to share their knowledge and how they can, they can grow this community of people who want to improve user and customer experiences. So, I don't necessarily have a course per se. There's a lot of places you can get courses, but you have to sometimes take it with a grain of salt. There's some good UX courses on Interaction Design Foundation, IDF. I would say if you want to follow some people from there, Professor Alan Dix is on there. He's a pretty good guy to follow his courses, and is really insightful and very delightful. His presentations are delightful. So I think you're on mute.
My apologies.
That's okay.
So thank you, Shannon, for answering all those questions. There's one question that probably I can answer. Yes, we will be sharing the recording of the webinar with everyone within 24 to 48 hours. It'll be live on our website, and all the attendees will be getting an email about it. So those who join in the middle of the session, or those who could not join, do not worry, you'll get this insightful webinar straight in your inboxes if you attended it. So yeah, thank you so much, Shannon. That was a wonderful chat, and this is the most I've spoken in any webinar that I've conducted. So thank you for that. I hope you had a great time
Yes, I did.
doing this with us.
I did. Thank you so much for having me.
It was amazing having you, and I hope all of the attendees got all the answers questions, because we pretty much answered all of them. Uh, we clubbed them together. You answered one question, but you answered three of them together, so that was great. I'm sure every question got answered. So there are a lot of thank yous popping up in my chat box. So thank you, Shannon, once again. That's it for today. So keep an eye out. We'll be coming back with another session of Masters of Conversion series. You can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook for all the updates. And yeah, reach out to Shannon if you have any questions. I'm sure she'll be more than happy to answer your questions and help you guide through your UX problems. So thank you so much, Shannon. Have a great day.